Okay, so welcome everyone. Phyllis is at a wedding today. We'll start with a reading for 31st August from Emmett Fox. And put a little light on the subject. It's titled Dwelling on Shinar. And it reads, the story of the Tower of Babel begins by saying that the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. That is to say, there was unity of thought and expression. Your faith was firm and dynamic. Then you allowed your consciousness to fall. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And that's Genesis 11:2. The plain means any kind of negative thinking, in contradistinction to the hill or the mountain, which stands for prayer or spiritual insight. The Bible mentions that they dwelt on that plain or in that state of mind. It is not an occasional negative thought that does the harm. It is the thought or false belief that is dwelt upon that causes your trouble. Fox continues, habitual wrong thinking, false beliefs, long entertained, build up a conviction, both conscious and subconscious, that we have to rely upon ourselves. Of course, nothing could be more discouraging than such an idea, and its turn produces more fear. In the parable, these people got the absurd idea that they could reach heaven, in other words, regain harmony, by building a material tower. This describes that sense of insecurity and apprehension that has always beset the greater part of humankind, because they have not realized the presence and power of God and their essential unity with God. Then the account says that the Lord scattered the people abroad and confounded their language, so they could not understand one another's speech. The confusion of tongues is a graphic description of the state of mind of those who have not yet begun to center their lives on God, for only fear and chaos can come to them until they do. So reading this as I was preparing reminded me of the story of the Babelfish in the 5-book series, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And if you've not read it and you enjoy fairly weird British humor with a lot of wordplay, it's a fun read. The author, Douglas Adams, explained in the story that when the Babelfish was discovered, it was discovered that if you stuck this small fish in your ear, it would translate for you every language in the universe so that you could understand what every person was saying. When it was first discovered, all the experts excitedly proclaimed that being able to understand what everyone said would lead to peace throughout the universe. Instead, recounted the author, or I should say recounted the Hitchhiker's Guide, which is allegedly what we're reading, the Babelfish caused more wars than any other source in the history of the universe. And I was thinking, we might say the same with the advent of social media on the internet. Allegedly, it was going to bring peace to everyone. Now I just heard someone say the same about AI. AI is going to bring peace to everybody. And I thought, Babelfish, not necessarily. And the reason for the topic, praying for the obnoxious and undeserving, was just thinking about this week's accumulation of heinous activities reported in the press, just to hit some of the rough, some of the low spots, if you will. There's Benjamin Netanyahu, who's decided he prefers killing Palestinians to accepting the peace proposal that he put out 2 months ago. There's Stephen Miller of President Trump's anti-immigrant crusade, who in an interview spent about a minute spouting every lie he could think of what all all the bad things immigrants were going to do to us, rape us, kill us, steal from us, and on and on and on. It was about a minute of hate spewing. There was the violence worship 23-year-old who shot and killed some kids in a church and a bunch of others that he injured. This week, there were at least 3 situations I saw or read about where police officers in pursuit of their own duties were ambushed and shot. There's the far right groups who, learning that the 23-year-old was trans, have decided and declared that all trans are incipient murderers and should be done away with. There's continuing fallout in Cincinnati from a 3 a.m. group beating that was caught on camera a couple weeks ago. There's cartel murders in Central America, and there's preachers and politicians being quoted proclaiming that women should be denied the vote and forbidden to work real jobs. And that's just the low spots. So, all this horrible stuff, how should we as spiritual seekers who wish to represent divine love respond to this hatred, to this demeaning of others? And I don't have hard answers. I can simply share what various people have said, share some ideas. But essentially, how can we pray for the obnoxious and the undeserving? Is what it sort of boils down to. So first of all, let's take a look at the Christian Bible. I have three different translations of Matthew 5:44. From Lamsa, but I say to you, love your enemies, bless anyone who curses you, do good to anyone who hates you, and pray for those who carry you away by force and persecute you. The 1599 Geneva Bible, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them which hurt you and persecute you. The Modern English Version, but I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. So, that's fairly definite instructions, if you will. Now, the 28 August Emmett Fox reading, to me, addressed this as well. And I'm going to share it with you, even though it's, I've already read one Emmett Fox. It's called The Conquering Horse. And he's dealing with the four horsemen in Revelation. From the quote from Revelation, and I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him and had a bow, and the crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And Fox explains that the white horse is spiritual nature. And the man or woman who rides the white horse achieves freedom and joy and ultimate happiness and harmony. I forgot that part. And Fox goes on, the Bible says that when he sat on him, he had a bow. The bow and arrow is an ancient symbol of the spoken word. And when you speak the word, you shoot an arrow, it goes where you aim it. The horseman on the white horse speaks the word. The rider on the white horse also wears a crown. The crown is a symbol of victory. And thus the rider on the white horse is always the victor. So, summation, if you want peace and understanding of God, there's only one way. You must ride the white horse. So, what we're talking about is speaking truth is speaking prayer. Now, Richard Rohr comments, in reality, everything and everyone is connected and nothing stands alone. Yeah, go ahead and open that and sit there. To pray for one part is really to pray for the whole. And so we do. Help us each day, and he sort of moves into a prayer here. Help us each day to stand for love, to stand for healing, for the good, for the diverse unity of the body of Christ and all creation. Because we know that this is what God desires, and that Christ prayed that all may be one. So what he's saying is to remember that we're all part of this fabric, if you will, all part of this existence of this God stuff, which we've talked about before. And that, therefore, even the obnoxious, the undeserving, those who are doing evil things are still part of the fabric. They are just really detached from the basis of the fabric, divine love. Richard Rohr also says, talking about prayer, because here we have to figure out how are we going to pray for these folks as well. Prayer is not primarily saying words or thinking thoughts, he writes. It is a life stance. It is a way of living in the presence of the divine, living in awareness of the presence, and even enjoying the presence should be our goal. And he says this: the secret of the contemplative life is learning to live in such a way in the now, because the now is all there is. He says when we're doing life right, it means nothing more than it is right now. Because God is in this moment in a non-blaming way. He has that emphasized. And when we are able to experience that, taste it, enjoy it, we don't need to hold on to it because the next moment will have its own taste and enjoyment. So he gives a litmus test. If we're pushing ourselves and others around, we have not yet found the secret of happiness. This moment is as full of divine presence as it can be. And he notes the saints have always called this the sacrament of the present moment. So he suggests that we think of prayer as waiting in love, returning to love, trusting that love is the deepest stream of reality. So it's not words, it's not attitude. And when we're dealing with those who are obnoxious, undeserving evil, I suggest to you that he's suggesting be in the moment of love. Period, end of story. I don't know if I'm totally comfortable with that. I certainly like to pray for the people who are slaughtering others to have a revelation, but maybe it's more powerful just to exist in the love and let the divine be the one to spread the message, to modify those whose behavior is so unloving, so out of God. And speaking of that, I find myself, in one sense, feeling empathetic to those who are doing such heinous acts because they are so far from God. They are so damaged in themselves. Does that mean I support them doing it? No. Does that mean I want them to stop? Yes. But that doesn't mean I can't have empathy for their living a miserable, miserable, miserable life. So I came across a prayer for the world in need from Alred of Revaux. It's a French name. I can never manage French. I'll call it Revaux. He was abbot of a Cistercian abbey there in the 1100s. And this was what he wrote. What is more useful than prayer? Give it. What is more gracious than pity? Spend it. Hold the whole world in one embrace of love. Consider the good, congratulate them, the wicked, to grieve over them. Behold the afflicted and compassionate, be compassionate to the oppressed, Call to mind the miseries of the poor, the groans of the orphans, the desolation of the widows, the sorrows of those who weep, the needs of the pilgrims, the vows of virgins, the perils of men on the sea, the temptation of monks, the cares of the clergy, the hardships that soldiers endure. Open your heart to all. Spend your cares on them. Pour forth your prayers for them. So talk about a strong recommendation built on Matthew 5, if you will. And there's a 9th century Irish prayer. Let us water the earth with tears of true compassion and prayer, and tend God's garden with our hands, treading lightly and singing his praise. So I suggest, and bear in mind this is a partly baked idea at best, that the more we are able as pieces of divine to hold in prayer even those who do heinous, I'm being corrected, heinous things, the more we're doing to lift this place up. But I want to close on a slightly lighter note because this has been pretty heavy. I came across an author, Lisa Deem, who reports that she discovered a year or so ago a previously uncatalogued manuscript in a European library, apparently written about the time of St. Anthony and the other Desert Fathers. And it contained, among the writings of faith in Christ, a number of epigrams on other topics. And she wrote, based on the tendency of these sayings to focus on baked goods, as well as what appeared to be grease spots dotting the parchment, she calls this section of writings the sayings of the Desert Fathers. And I'm going to share some of them with you. Each of these is a standalone epigram. They used to say of Abba Arsenius that all his life long, when he was sitting, he had a rag on his lap on account of the crumbs that fell when he ate cake. Abba Moses asked Abba Silvanus, can a man try a new dessert every day? The Abba said, if he works hard, he can try a new dessert at every moment. Abba, Peter of the Desert, wrote, a soggy pie is the worst of all baked goods. It is the mother of all bad desserts. I wonder if he was talking about just desserts there. Ordering dessert, according to Abba Macarius, does not require a lot of language. Reach out your hand saying, give me that one. And an Egyptian hermit says, if you desire a pilgrimage to TCVY, begin by getting in the car. He must have been a little ahead of his time. And lastly, from Amma Sincletia, if you start on the cake, do not let a person discourage you. Your endurance will defeat that person. And then finally, God is equally pleased by all desserts. Whatever attracts you at the bakery is good. So let us not lose our sense of light and life in the face of this, in the face of our prayers. The divine is in humor too. And then Phyllis gave me a copy of a Lakota prayer that seemed like a good close here. It goes, great mystery, teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the senses of my body, the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I may enter my sacred space and love beyond my fear, and thus walk in balance with the passing of each glorious sun. And I say to you, may you walk every day in balance and harmony and love. And that's what I had to say. So thoughts? Yes, Lori Kay.
I have a number of thoughts. So I've talked with Susie in the past many times about the how. You know, when people say a spiritual thing, like trust your heart or have faith or pray for someone, you know, or pray for yourself. I want to know how. I want to know what a lot of people think. I want to know what I think. I want to explore it because I want it to be really applicable in a way that shifts my life. Because when I shift my life, then I stand as a better example in my life wherever I go. Whoever needs to see that example will see it. Whoever doesn't won't see it. It's okay. So there's one phrase that you used, you know, returning to love. Oh, bye, Susie. Susie said she has to leave. Um, Returning to love. So when it comes to like praying for people who, like Netanyahu, there's not a chance for me to be able to love the man that is cruel and murderous. There is there are two chances for me at this point that I can see. One is to love the innocence and the connection with the divine that he is, whether he's living it, aware of it or not, and feel sorry for him for being such an a-hole and such a bad person. You know, like I get to keep both those perspectives because what he's doing is absolutely nightmarish. This cannot be freaking happening. And I'm allowed to have all of my emotions. And I can also know that two things can be at play. One, he came in to do this for some reason, to help the greater blah blah blah, and it looks like crap, just like what's happening in Washington. Um, or he's temporarily lost. But when I think of returning to love, a lot of times it's not worrying about the people out there and what they're doing if it's not directly impacting me, and it's instead growing my peace, growing my love. It's like leaving some people behind in my life because to try to get them to understand my perspective doesn't cause either one of us peace or love. And I keep thinking of St. Francis, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go out there and try to be some image of like the Divine Mother. Ah, bless all of us. I love you. Like I'm not there. That's not my trip this time. So that's the stuff that it made me think about. I appreciate the conversation very, very much.
Thank
And
you.
and praying for somebody, I'm not sure what that means. I think it's very individual. I think it's very deep and an interesting conversation.
I do agree with you, by the way. Carrying, praying, well, I call it holding them up to the light or asking the divine love to intercede. But I also differentiate between wanting them whole and accepting the horrors that they are visiting upon others. So I agree.
Interesting, because his path may not be to ever understand it. So to be holding that for him actually hits my nervous system as a blockage, actually, as a trying to force something. And like Amachi says that when somebody's really in trouble with her is when she doesn't punish them, when she doesn't like rebuke them and go, don't do that, you shouldn't do, because she leaves them to their karma. So I don't know. There's a lot to think about in that.
Yeah. Sister Pepper used to say, whether or not you believe in tenfold return, karma happens. And short of accepting forgiveness from the divine, there's no way out of it.
Well, forgiveness from ourselves, because we are one with that. I mean, if you sit around waiting for forgiveness from the divine, it's already been given. The divine's not sitting there judging us and then giving it up and judging us. The divine has never judged us. The divine gave us free will. So when we use it, it's not like God's going to go, oh, you shouldn't have done
No,
that.
no, no. I agree with you there. Thank you. Somebody else. Ellie.
Um, I enjoyed what you said. Um, the belief in false thoughts. Habitual, what I think you said, habitual bad thoughts causes bad thinking. I think I wrote that down right. I was trying to multitask.
I was talking out of the spirit. I'm not sure what I said.
But anyway, it brought to me where that says in in the book of wisdom in Mishlei that we have the power of life and death in our tongues. And before we have that power of life and death, it begins in our thoughts. And I heard many years ago from a pagan practitioner, just 2 words, thoughts are. And it took me a minute to realize, what that meant. And then I began to laugh. And it's like, yes, thoughts are. Because whatever is here begins here. Here. So, since then, and of course now, I've become aware more so, of how our own words affect our own walk, and also how they affect others' walks. The way they walk. If we're constantly saying, oh, I don't feel good, or I can't, or any of those things, we began to believe it. I can't do this. We began to believe it. However, if we say, I can, or what can I do, we change that thinking. Or as Lori Art is always saying, gratitude. That changes her thinking. So there are ways that we can, change our thinking. And, for those that, we think are, what is the title? Obnoxious and undeserving. I don't think we can make that call, because someone who we may not think so, the divine may have a plan for them. So what right now they may not see the light, but who's to say later that the light being presented in a different way, that they're going to see it. So I try not to, make that judgment call of, who's obnoxious or undeserving, because for the grace of the divine, there I go also. So, and then there's also this saying that if you spot it, you got it. If you see something in somebody else that you have an issue with, why? Well, can you see that in you? And a lot of times it's like, ouch, because we can see whatever that is in us. That's why we get so upset sometimes. Well, with me, it is. And so then I try to change, it, whatever it is. And that's the difference between the lower frequencies and the higher frequencies at times for me. Anyway, great talk. And I'm always amazed whenever I go back over my notes, how once I re-listen to what you say, Brian, your words, teachings, wisdom, whatever, once I hear another, what you're saying, then I have to go back and add more notes to it, because more things come to mind as I'm listening.
Cool. Thank you. We thank the divine for having allowed us to join today. We thank the divine for having given me a computer that did work so I could be on with you. We thank the divine for watching over us, keeping us safe, dropping good, delivering good to our lives, delivering love to our lives, delivering more wisdom to our lives. We thank the divine for guiding us as we depart from here into the paths that will be best for our walk and best for the world. And we thank the divine for bringing us back again next week to share, to care, to love together, and to rejoice together. Amen.